The day Earth joined the Galactic Alliance should have been humanity's greatest triumph. After centuries of looking up at the stars and wondering if they were alone, humans had finally found their answer. They were not only not alone, but they were now part of something greater. A vast community of intelligent species spread across thousands of star systems. James Miller stood at attention in his Blue Earth Fleet uniform, watching as the Alliance representatives signed the treaty that would change human history forever. As commander of Earth's largest orbital defense station, he had been selected to represent humanity's military at the ceremony. The Grand Hall of the United Nations building in New York buzzed with excitement. Dignitaries from every nation on Earth mingled with alien representatives, their strange forms and colors creating a living tapestry unlike anything humanity had ever seen. "This marks the beginning of a new era for your species," announced the Alliance High Representative, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin. "Access to faster-than-light travel, advanced medicine, clean energy, all the benefits of Alliance membership are now yours." The crowd erupted in applause. Miller clapped too, but something in the High Representative's next words made his hand slow. "Of course, all new members must abide by Alliance regulations. Your technology development will be guided to ensure compatibility and safety. Most importantly, as is standard for species at your development stage, Earth will not be permitted to construct military vessels capable of interstellar travel or equipped with weapons above Category 3. Miller's hands stopped clapping entirely. He leaned toward Admiral Thompson beside him. "Did he just say we can't build warships?" Thompson nodded grimly. "That's been part of the deal from the start. They say it's standard procedure for developing species like us. But who will defend our colonies once we start expanding?" "The Alliance Defense Fleet. They've promised protection for all member worlds." Miller frowned but said nothing more. The ceremony continued, speeches were made, and humanity officially joined the galactic community. In the months that followed, the benefits became apparent. Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries were cured. Energy problems vanished as fusion technology was improved by alien science. The first human colony ships, civilian vessels approved by Alliance inspectors, departed for nearby star systems. But Commander Miller's concerns remained. 3 years later, Miller stood in the observation deck of Neptune Orbital Station, staring at the display showing the aftermath of the attack. The mining colony on Neptune's moon Triton lay in ruins, emergency shuttles evacuating survivors, while rescue teams searched for those trapped in collapsed habitats. "Pirates again," said Anna Wilson, director of Earth's Space Development Agency, who stood beside him. Her dark eyes reflected the emergency lights flashing on the display. "Third attack on our outer colonies this month." "Where was the Alliance Defense Fleet?" Miller asked, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. Wilson sighed. "They say they didn't receive the distress call until it was too late. Something about communications relay issues." "Convenient," Miller muttered. "Just like the attack on the Europa Research Station, just like the raid on our Mars colony shipping lanes." The communication panel beeped. Miller touched the screen, and his face went pale as he read the casualty list. "Tom's on here," he said quietly. "My brother was on Triton." Wilson placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, James." Miller turned away from the display, his jaw tight. 217 dead. And we sit here with our hands tied while the Alliance tells us it's too dangerous to let humans have proper warships. "They say we're too unpredictable," Wilson said, "that our history shows we're too aggressive for our technological level. Yet they let the Draxis Consortium operate armed merchant vessels, and everyone knows they're just pirates with fancy paperwork." Miller paced the small observation deck. "It's been 3 years, Anna. 3 years of watching our people die while we wait for Alliance ships that never arrive in time." Wilson watched him carefully. "What are you suggesting?" Miller stopped pacing and lowered his voice. "The Alliance doesn't want us building warships." "Fine. Let's not build warships." "I don't follow." "The regulations prohibit military vessels with certain capabilities. But what about civilian ships with robust, defensive measures? Wilson's eyes widened. You're talking about exploiting loopholes in their own regulations. That's dangerous ground, James, if the Alliance caught us. They're already letting us die, Miller interrupted. My brother died because we couldn't defend our own colonies properly. How many more have to die before we admit the Alliance isn't going to protect us? Wilson was silent for a long moment. Finally, she said, even if I agreed with you, where would we build such ships? Alliance inspectors have access to all Earth shipyards. A slight smile crossed Miller's face. Not all of them. Remember Project Blackstone? Wilson's eyebrows rose. The abandoned mining facility in the asteroid belt. That was shut down years ago. Officially, yes. Unofficially, I have friends who've kept it operational as a research outpost, far from regular inspection routes with its own manufacturing capabilities. What you're suggesting is treason against the Alliance, Wilson said, but Miller could hear the hesitation in her voice. I'm suggesting we protect our people when no one else will, Miller replied. I've lost my brother. I won't stand by and lose more. Wilson turned to look at the display showing emergency vehicles swarming around the damaged colony. Families were being torn apart. Children were among the dead. If we're caught, we'll lose everything, she said. Alliance membership, technological access, trade rights. And if we do nothing, we lose our people. Miller's voice was firm. I'd rather face Alliance sanctions than more funerals. Wilson closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. I'll need a proper proposal. Deniability for Earth's government. A way to disguise what we're building. I already have ideas, Miller said. Mining vessels require powerful engines. Asteroid deflection systems need targeting capabilities. Emergency response ships need robust hulls. And you'll need a team. Engineers, tacticians, people who can keep secrets. Miller nodded. I know just who to ask. People who've lost something to these attacks. People who understand what's at stake. Wilson took a deep breath. Send me your proposal through secure channels. No electronic transmissions, nothing that can be traced. As they spoke, another emergency transport arrived at the station, carrying more survivors from Triton. Through the viewport, Miller could see medical teams rushing to assist the injured being offloaded. Among them was a small child, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, clutching a tattered stuffed animal as a medic led her toward the medical bay. Her face was blank with shock. Miller watched her pass and felt something harden inside him. The Alliance wants to treat us like children. It's time we grew up. Wilson nodded grimly. I'll see you at Blackstone in 2 weeks. Don't tell me how you get there. I don't want to know. As Wilson left the observation deck, Miller turned back to the viewport, watching the stars beyond Neptune. Somewhere out there, the Alliance Council made decisions about humanity's future without truly understanding what humans were capable of. They had labeled humans as dangerous and unpredictable. Perhaps it was time to show them just how right they were. Blackstone facility hung silently in the darkness of the asteroid belt, its external lights dimmed to avoid detection. From a distance, it looked like just another rocky body among millions, unremarkable and easily overlooked. This was exactly as Commander James Miller intended. Miller guided his shuttle through the narrow opening of the hidden docking bay, the magnetic shields shimmering briefly as he passed through them. Inside, the cavernous space buzzed with activity that would have shocked Alliance inspectors. Engineers in work suits moved between partially assembled ship frames while technicians tested power systems that were far beyond what any mining vessel would require. Not bad for 6 months of secret work, said Director Anna Wilson, who waited for him at the dock. Her normally perfect appearance was roughened by the realities of living in a hidden facility. Her short hair had grown out, and her practical jumpsuit was stained with machine oil. It's only the beginning, Miller replied, following her toward the main construction bay. We need to be operational within the year. The colonies can't wait any longer. Blackstone had once been an official earth mining operation, but budget cuts had led to its closure 5 years earlier. On paper, it was abandoned. In reality, Miller and a small team of trusted former Earth Fleet officers had secretly maintained and expanded it, preparing for the day humanity would need to defend itself without Alliance approval. "Our biggest challenge is power systems," Wilson explained as they walked. "The Alliance only permits civilian drives of Grade 3 or lower for ships our size. But we found ways around that limitation." They entered the main bay, and Miller stopped in his tracks. Before him stood the skeletal frame of what would become their first ship, much larger than he had expected. "We're calling her the ERS Defiant," Wilson said. "Emergency Response Ship. Officially. She'll be twice as fast as anything the Alliance thinks we can build." Tom Roberts, the project's chief engineer, approached them. In his mid-50s, with weathered skin and calloused hands, Roberts had lost his daughter in an attack on a Mars-bound transport the previous year. His eyes held the same determined look Miller saw in his own mirror each morning. "Commander, good to see you," Roberts said, offering a firm handshake. "I found something you'll want to see." He led them to a workstation where technical drawings and Alliance regulations filled multiple screens. "I've been studying Alliance restrictions line by line," Roberts explained. "There's a loophole we can exploit. Look here." He pointed to a section of dense legal text. "Emergency response vessels are permitted enhanced capabilities for rescue operations in hazardous environments. This includes reinforced hulls, advanced propulsion for rapid deployment, and defensive countermeasures to protect rescue personnel." Miller leaned closer. "Defensive countermeasures." Roberts grinned. "Anti-meteor point defenses, radiation shields, and this is the important part, systems to neutralize environmental hazards to rescue operations. The regulations don't clearly define what constitutes an environmental hazard. So a pirate ship could be classified as an environmental hazard," Wilson said slowly. "Exactly," Roberts nodded. "We're building rescue ships with the capability to neutralize threats to the people they're rescuing." Miller felt a smile spread across his face. "This is exactly the kind of thinking we need. How soon until the Defiant is ready for testing?" 4 months for minimal operation. 6 for full capability," Roberts replied. "We're using modular construction techniques to speed things up. Once we have the design perfected, we can roll out more ships quickly." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from the facility's security chief. "Director Wilson, we have an unscheduled shuttle approaching." Alliance markings. The mood in the room instantly shifted. Wilson looked at Miller with alarm. "How did they find us?" "Could be routine. The Alliance surveys the belt occasionally," Miller said, not believing it himself. "How long until they're within sensor range?" 30 minutes at their current speed," came the reply. Wilson turned to Roberts. "Hide anything that looks military. Cover the Defiant's weapon mounts. Everyone stick to the mining research cover story." Roberts nodded and rushed off, barking orders to his team. "We need to meet them at the auxiliary dock," Wilson told Miller. "That section is set up with legitimate mining equipment as our cover." As they hurried through the facility's corridors, Miller's mind raced. If the Alliance discovered what they were building, it would mean the end of the project, and possibly criminal charges for everyone involved. Years of imprisonment on an Alliance penal colony was the standard sentence for weapons violations. The Alliance inspector who emerged from the shuttle was a tall, thin man with the precise movements and enhanced eyes that marked him as from one of the inner Alliance worlds. He introduced himself simply as Mark, withholding his full name as was common for inspection officials. "This facility was listed as decommissioned," Mark said, his enhanced eyes scanning everything with unsettling intensity. "Yet we detected power signatures and material shipments." Wilson stepped forward with a practiced smile. "We reopened Blackstone as a research outpost last year. We're developing improved mining techniques for the outer belt. It's all properly registered with Earth government." Mark consulted his datapad. "I see no such registration." "Bureaucratic oversight, I'm sure," Wilson replied smoothly. "I can provide our Earth authorization codes." Mark's expression remained neutral. I would like to inspect your operations. For the next 2 hours, they led Mark through carefully prepared sections of the facility. Engineering teams had worked frantically to hide evidence of their true purpose, covering military-grade components with tarps and replacing technical readouts with mining data on their screens. When they reached the main construction bay, the Defiant was partially concealed under scaffolding and disguised with temporary plating to hide its true design. Roberts met them there, explaining the ship as a next-generation deep-belt mining vessel with enhanced safety features. Mark studied the partially built ship carefully. The power requirements for this vessel seem excessive for mining operations. Roberts didn't miss a beat. Asteroid mining in the outer belt requires significant power. We're testing new techniques for processing ore in situ rather than hauling raw material back to Mars. It's more efficient but energy-intensive. Mark made notes on his pad. And these reinforced sections here. He pointed to what were actually weapon mounting points, now disguised as equipment bays. Specialized processing compartments, Roberts explained. The conditions in the outer belt are harsh. Everything needs extra reinforcement. Throughout the inspection, Miller remained tense, certain that at any moment Mark would see through their deception. When the inspector finally returned to his shuttle, his parting words left them all uneasy. I will file my report with Alliance oversight. Expect a follow-up inspection within the month. We will require complete technical schematics at that time. As the Alliance shuttle disappeared into the blackness of space, Wilson turned to Miller. We have 2 weeks at most before they return with a full inspection team. Miller nodded grimly. Then we accelerate the timeline. The Defiant needs to be operational before they come back. That's impossible, Roberts protested. We haven't even tested the propulsion systems, let alone the defensive capabilities. Then we work around the clock, Miller said firmly, and we prepare for the worst. If the Alliance returns before we're ready, we'll have to launch regardless. That night, as the facility hummed with frantic activity, Miller stood alone in the observation dome, looking out at the distant sun and the even more distant stars. Somewhere out there, human colonies were vulnerable, depending on protection that never seemed to arrive in time. We're coming, he whispered to the darkness. Just hold on a little longer. They're coming back early, Wilson said, bursting into the makeshift command center where Miller was reviewing the Defiant systems. Alliance inspection fleet. 3 ships will reach Blackstone in less than 6 hours. Miller's face hardened. How many inspectors? This isn't just inspectors. It's a full verification team with security personnel. Someone tipped them off. Roberts looked up from his workstation, where final diagnostics on the Defiant were running. She's at 85%. The main weapons are online, but the targeting systems are still being calibrated. Engines are functional but untested beyond station-keeping thrusters. Miller made his decision instantly. We launch now. Now. Roberts sounded shocked. Commander, we haven't completed full system checks. The ship isn't ready. We're out of time, Miller replied. If that Alliance team boards the Defiant, everything we've worked for is finished. We need to move her out of here before they arrive. Wilson nodded in agreement. Who do you need for a skeleton crew? Just Roberts and a few of his top engineers. We'll take her out into the Kuiper Belt for testing, away from Alliance patrol routes. And the rest of us? Wilson asked. Stick to our cover story. You know nothing about a warship. You're running a mining research operation, exactly as we told Inspector Mark. Within the hour, Miller stood on the bridge of the Defiant as the docking clamps released. The ship was far from finished. Exposed conduits lined the walls, and temporary consoles had been hastily installed in place of the planned command systems. Only 6 people were aboard: Miller, Roberts, and 4 engineers chosen for their expertise with the ship's critical systems. Thrusters online, reported Kate, the propulsion specialist. Ready for departure. Take us out, nice and easy, Miller ordered. Keep power emissions to a minimum until we're well clear of Blackstone. The Defiant slipped from its berth like a shadow, emerging from the hidden dock into the vastness of the asteroid belt. For a vessel of its size, nearly 300 meters long, it moved with surprising grace. "Set course for the Kuiper Belt, edge of the Eris sector," Miller directed. "Once we're past Mars orbit, we'll test the main drive." As the ship accelerated away from Blackstone, Miller felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. The Defiant represented humanity's refusal to remain defenseless, but she was untested, incomplete, and now officially a rogue vessel. If the Alliance caught them, everyone aboard faced severe penalties. For hours, they traveled in tense silence, making minor adjustments to systems and repairing small failures that appeared during their journey. When they finally cleared the orbit of Mars, Roberts gave the signal they'd been waiting for. "We're clear for main engine test," he announced. "All safety systems online." Miller nodded. "Take us to full power, gradual increase." Kate's hands moved across her console, engaging main drive in 3, 2, 1. The ship hummed as power surged through its systems. The engine noise rose from a whisper to a deep, steady rumble. On the view screen, stars began to blur slightly as the Defiant accelerated. Power at 30%, 50%, 70%. The ship's frame vibrated but held firm. Roberts watched his engineering displays with growing excitement. "She's taking it, Commander." "Structural integrity holding. Full power," Miller ordered. The Defiant leaped forward with sudden force, pressing them all back into their seats. The asteroid belt fell away behind them as the ship achieved a speed no mining vessel could ever reach. Alliance regulations permit civilian ships our size a maximum speed of 0.15 light, Roberts said with undisguised pride. "We're currently traveling at 0.35 and could push to 0.5 if needed." For the first time in months, Miller smiled openly. "Next, let's test our defensive measures." They spent the next 12 hours in the empty space beyond Neptune's orbit, testing each of the Defiant's systems. The ship's energy weapons, disguised as mining lasers, cut through test debris with precision. Point defense systems, officially listed as anti-meteor protection, tracked and neutralized drone targets with perfect accuracy. "She's everything we hoped for," Roberts said as they completed the final test. "Not quite a warship by Alliance military standards, but more than capable of defending our colonies against pirates." Miller was about to reply when an alarm sounded from the communications station. "Incoming transmission," reported Ben, the communications engineer. It's from the Neptune colony. They're under attack." Miller moved quickly to the station. Details. 3 ships, described as Draxis Consortium vessels. They've disabled the colony's communication array and are boarding the main habitat. The Draxis Consortium, officially independent traders, but known throughout human space as ruthless pirates who operated just within Alliance legal boundaries. The same group suspected in the attack that had killed Miller's brother. Miller looked around at his small crew. The Defiant was unfinished, untested in actual combat, and operating with minimal personnel. Engaging with the pirates would reveal their secret to the Alliance. How long would it take the Alliance defense fleet to respond? He asked. Ben checked the data. Nearest Alliance patrol is 6 hours away at their best speed. By then, the colony will be stripped of everything valuable and dozens will be dead, Miller said grimly. He straightened his shoulders. "Set course for Neptune. Maximum speed." Roberts looked concerned. "Commander, the ship isn't ready for combat. We're still running on backup systems for half our functions." "Those are our people on that colony," Miller replied firmly. "We built this ship to protect them when the Alliance wouldn't. What's the point if we hide when they need us most?" No one argued further. Kate programmed the course, and the Defiant surged toward Neptune, pushing its experimental engines to their limits. They arrived in Neptune's orbit in just under an hour, slowing only when the massive blue planet filled their view screen. The colony was a series of connected habitats orbiting Neptune's largest moon, Triton. Near it, 3 angular vessels were docked, their predatory shapes unmistakable as Draxis ships. They haven't spotted us yet, Ben reported. Their sensors are focused on the colony. Weapons status? Miller asked. Main energy arrays charged and ready, replied Dan, the weapons specialist. Point defense online. We can target all 3 ships if needed. Miller took a deep breath. This moment would change everything. Once they engaged, there would be no going back. Open a channel to the Draxis ships, he ordered. When the connection was established, Miller spoke clearly and calmly. Attention Draxis vessels. This is the Earth Response Ship Defiant. You are engaged in an illegal action against a human colony. Withdraw immediately or face consequences. After a moment of silence, a harsh voice responded. This is Captain Varex of the Free Trader Night Shadow. We're conducting legitimate salvage operations under Alliance Commercial Code. Interfere, and we'll report you to Alliance authorities. Those are people, not salvage, Miller replied. You have 1 minute to disengage and withdraw. The pirate captain laughed. Your vessel is unregistered. You have no authority here, and judging by your power signature, you're just another mining ship. Leave now before we decide you're worth salvaging too. Miller cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Target their engines and weapon systems. Disable, don't destroy. The Defiant moved swiftly, emerging from Neptune's shadow into full view of the pirate vessels. For a moment, nothing happened as the Draxis ships assessed this unexpected arrival. Then one of the pirate ships detached from the colony and turned toward them, weapons powering up. They're targeting us, Dan announced. Miller nodded once. Fire. The Defiant's main energy array flashed, a brilliant beam connecting it to the approaching pirate ship. The effect was immediate. The Draxis vessel's engines flickered and died, leaving it drifting. One down, Miller said. Target the second ship. Before they could fire again, the remaining 2 pirate vessels detached from the colony and began emergency launch procedures. They're running, Ben said with disbelief in his voice. Let them go, Miller ordered, but download their identification codes. We want to know who they are when we meet them again. As the pirate ships fled, cheers erupted from the Neptune colony over the communication channel. The colonists had witnessed the entire exchange. This is Neptune Colony Director Paul. Whoever you are, thank you. The Alliance Defense Fleet never comes in time. Who are you? Miller hesitated before responding. Friends who believe humans should protect humans. We need to leave before Alliance patrols arrive, but we'll be watching. You're not alone anymore. As the Defiant turned away from Neptune, setting course for the outer system, Miller knew their actions would be reported to the Alliance within hours. The secret was out. Humans had built a warship. Where to now, Commander? Kate asked. Miller looked at the starfield on the view screen. Back to Blackstone to pick up Wilson and the others. Then we find somewhere new to continue our work. Today was just the beginning. News of the Defiant's defense of Neptune Colony spread through human settlements faster than any Alliance sensor could contain it. Within days, the mysterious ship had become a symbol of hope for outer colony residents who had long felt abandoned by Earth's government and ignored by Alliance protection forces. The Alliance Council was not pleased. This is an outrageous violation of membership protocols. The Alliance High Representative's hologram towered over the emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. His normally smooth features were distorted with anger. Earth has constructed a military vessel in direct defiance of Alliance regulations. There will be consequences. General Howard, Earth's senior military representative, maintained a neutral expression. We understand your concern, High Representative, but Earth's government has no knowledge of any unauthorized military construction. Do not play games, General. We have visual confirmation from the Neptune incident. The vessel displayed capabilities far beyond civilian specifications. We're investigating the matter, Howard replied calmly. But I must point out that this Defiant protected a human colony when Alliance defense forces were hours away. 238 lives were saved. That is irrelevant to the violation. As the diplomatic crisis unfolded, Miller and his crew had already abandoned Blackstone facility. The Alliance had arrived in force only hours after the Defiant departed, arresting several junior technicians who had been left behind as part of the cover story. But Wilson and most of the senior staff had escaped, scattering to various hidden locations throughout the solar system. The new center of operations was beneath the surface of Ceres, in an abandoned mining complex much larger than Blackstone. Here, not one but 3 ships were under construction, each incorporating lessons learned from the Defiant's successful first mission. Miller stood with Wilson in the main construction bay, watching as teams assembled the second ship, codenamed Sentinel. "The sanctions are getting worse," Wilson said, reviewing reports on her tablet. "The Alliance has suspended technology transfers and imposed trade restrictions on all Earth products. Colonial supplies are being held at Alliance checkpoints for inspection, which means indefinitely." Miller frowned. "They're punishing innocent colonists to force Earth to give us up. It's worse than that. Our sources indicate the Alliance is deliberately reducing patrols near human settlements. They're creating a vacuum, knowing pirates will fill it. They're using our people as bait," Miller said, his voice hardening, "hoping we'll reveal ourselves again." Lisa Parker, formerly a tactical officer in Earth's fleet and now captain designate of the Sentinel, approached them. In her late 30s, with close-cropped hair and a focused gaze, she had lost her husband in the same Triton colony attack that had killed Miller's brother. "Construction is ahead of schedule," she reported. "Sentinel will be ready for launch in 3 weeks. Guardian and Protector are at frame completion." Miller nodded. "Good. The Alliance thinks they can starve us into submission, but they've only given us more people willing to help. Every sanctioned shipyard worker, every laid-off engineer, they're all finding their way to us. We've had contact from 3 more colony groups," Wilson added. "Mars Outpost, Europa Station, and Ganymede Base all want to contribute resources." "How are they handling the sanctions?" Miller asked. "Struggling, but determined. The Mars governor sent a message. Better to starve free than be fed as pets." A warning signal interrupted their conversation. The facility's communication officer hurried over. "Priority message from our contact in Jupiter space," he said urgently. "Large-scale attack underway at the Mars Colonial Hub. Multiple ships, not just pirates. Looks like a coordinated assault. Alliance patrols have technical difficulties and can't respond." "How many civilian ships in dock?" Lisa asked immediately. 17, including 3 passenger liners. Total population of the hub is over 6,000. Miller and Wilson exchanged glances. This was far bigger than the Neptune incident, a major colonial center under attack, with thousands of lives at stake. "How long until Sentinel is combat ready?" Miller asked Lisa. "We can launch now with basic systems, but weapons are only at 60% and drive efficiency is untested." "What about Defiant?" "Fully operational after the upgrades, but we're still training the expanded crew." Miller made his decision. "Launch both ships. I'll command Defiant, you take Sentinel. Wilson, coordinate from here and start evacuating this facility in case we fail and they track us back." Within an hour, both ships slipped out of Ceres' shadow. The Defiant now boasted a full crew of 24, while the Sentinel operated with the minimum 16 needed for basic function. They accelerated toward Mars, pushing engines beyond safety parameters. "Incoming data from Mars," reported Ben from his communications station on Defiant. 8 attacker ships. They've disabled the hub's outer defenses and are boarding through multiple points. They're not just looting. They're taking hostages. Pirates don't usually take hostages, Miller mused. Either they're slavers or someone wants bargaining chips against Earth. Wilson's voice came through the secure channel from Ceres. "This feels like a setup." Miller nodded grimly. "Whether it's a trap or not, we have people who need help. Lisa, when we arrive, Sentinel will target their engines, disable their ability to leave. Defiant will handle their weapons and create a path for boarding teams. We take back that station. Copy that. Lisa responded from Sentinel. But Commander, if this is a trap, there may be Alliance observers nearby, recording everything. Then let's give them something worth watching, Miller replied. They arrived at Mars to find the colonial hub in chaos. The massive wheel-shaped station's outer ring was damaged in multiple sections, and 8 sleek attack ships were docked at various points. The attackers' vessels bore no recognizable markings, not typical pirates, but professionals with military-grade equipment. Life signs, Miller asked as they approached. Multiple hostage groups being moved toward the attackers' ships, reported the sensor officer. They're starting to evacuate with their captives. Not on our watch, Miller said. All hands, battle stations. The Defiant and Sentinel emerged from Mars' orbital shadow in perfect formation. Their sudden appearance caused momentary confusion among the attackers. Open all frequencies, Miller ordered. Let everyone hear this. When the channel was open, he spoke clearly. Attention attackers at Mars Colonial Hub. This is Commander Miller of the Human Defense Force. Release all hostages and withdraw immediately, or be destroyed. The response came quickly, not in words, but in action. 2 of the attack ships detached from the station and turned their weapons toward the approaching human vessels. They're powering up weapons, Ben reported. Energy signatures match Alliance military grade. These aren't pirates. They're using Alliance tech. Miller's eyes narrowed. So that's how it is. Sentinel. Execute attack pattern Delta. Target their engines first. The battle that followed would later be described in hidden messages throughout human colonies as the day Mars stood. The Defiant and Sentinel, though outnumbered 4-1, moved with coordination that shocked their opponents. Years of simulation training in Earth Fleet, combined with the intimate knowledge of each ship's capabilities, gave Miller's forces an edge that raw firepower couldn't match. The Sentinel swooped beneath one attacker, precision beams slicing through engine housings while avoiding critical systems that might cause catastrophic explosions. The Defiant, meanwhile, engaged 3 ships simultaneously, its point defense systems intercepting incoming fire, while its main weapons systematically disabled the attacker's offensive capabilities. Boarding teams ready, reported Miller's tactical officer. Launch as soon as Sentinel clears path to Airlock 7, Miller ordered. Lisa, we need that path. The Sentinel executed a maneuver that would have been impossible for an Alliance vessel of similar size, rolling between 2 attackers while maintaining fire on both. The move created the opening they needed. Path clear, Lisa reported. But we've taken damage to our starboard shield emitters. Can't maintain this position long. Understood. Boarding teams, go now. From the Defiant's launch bay, 3 shuttles raced toward the Colonial Hub. Each carried a team of former Earth Fleet Marines, now fighting for this unauthorized defense force. They docked at Airlock 7 and stormed into the station, engaging the attackers directly. The battle raged for nearly an hour, in space around the station and through its corridors. When it ended, 6 of the 8 attack ships were disabled, their crews captured or neutralized. 2 had escaped, jumping to FTL speeds before they could be disabled. Miller stood in the hub's operations center, surveying the damage reports. 312 colonists injured, 47 dead, but thousands saved, and the station secured. Commander, Lisa called from where she was reviewing data from a captured attacker's ship. You need to see this. On her screen was the attacker's mission brief. The text was encoded, but clear enough to read. Operation Puro-CHN, OGG-CTAC, E. Force Human Defense or ESPONSE, Co-and Firearm Capabilities, Secure Ho-Stages, for Illivi Rage. At the bottom was an authorization code Miller recognized immediately. Alliance Military Intelligence. This wasn't pirates, he said quietly. This was an Alliance black operation to draw us out. Lisa nodded grimly. And to gather hostages to use against Earth's government. Miller looked around at the colonial staff who had returned to their posts, working alongside his people to restore the station's systems. "They need to know," he said finally. "Everyone needs to know the Alliance isn't just failing to protect us. They're actively working against us." As his team secured evidence from the attackers' ships and systems, Miller prepared a message that would be sent to every human settlement, station, and ship. The truth about the Mars incident would become the spark that changed humanity's relationship with the Alliance forever. The Grand Chamber of the Alliance Council fell silent as the evidence played on the massive display screen. Footage from the Mars Colonial Hub attack showed Alliance-coded ships firing on civilian areas. Documents recovered from the attackers revealed Operation Provocation in painful detail, a deliberate plan to draw out human defenders and gather hostages to force Earth's compliance. When the presentation ended, Earth Ambassador John Torres stood before the assembled representatives of 117 spacefaring species, a tall man with silver hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent decades in space before turning to politics. Torres had been summoned to answer for humanity's treaty violations. Instead, he had turned the tables. "Distinguished representatives," Torres began, his voice steady and clear. "For 3 years, humanity has suffered while waiting for protection that never arrived. When we built ships to defend ourselves, we were sanctioned and threatened. Now we know why. Some within the Alliance never intended to protect us at all." High on his elevated platform, the Alliance High Representative shifted uncomfortably. "These allegations are concerning, but they do not excuse Earth's development of military vessels in violation of membership protocols. Those protocols were designed to keep humanity defenseless," said a new voice. James Miller strode into the chamber, flanked by Anna Wilson and Lisa Parker. Their entrance caused murmurs throughout the assembly. These were the leaders of the rogue Human Defense Force, walking openly into the heart of Alliance power. Guards moved to intercept them, but Ambassador Torres raised his hand. "These individuals were granted diplomatic immunity for this session. They are here at my invitation." Miller approached the central podium. Behind him, on a small anti-gravity platform, rested a sealed container. "My name is Commander James Miller. I commanded what you call the illegal human warship Defiant. I stand here not to apologize, but to present evidence that the Alliance has systematically discriminated against humanity since our induction." He gestured, and the main display filled with a new set of data, response times for distress calls from various species colonies, sorted by membership tier. The average response time for a Tier 1 member's distress call is 26 minutes. For Tier 2, it's 52 minutes. For humanity and other Tier 3 members, it's 7 hours and 14 minutes, if ships respond at all. More murmurs filled the chamber as representatives from other newer species began studying the data with increased interest. "This disparity isn't accidental," Miller continued. "It's by design. The Alliance Military Command has designated human space as Low-Priority Response Zone Alpha. Yet our membership fees and resource contributions are calculated at the same rate as everyone else's." The High Representative's face had grown increasingly flushed. "These are internal military designations based on threat assessment and resource allocation. They are not evidence of discrimination." "Then perhaps this is," Miller replied, opening the container. From it, he removed a sleek device with Alliance military markings. "This is a long-range scanner module recovered from the Mars attackers. Its manufacturing code traces it directly to Alliance Military Production Facility Omega." He placed it on the evidence table where scanning drones immediately moved to verify its authenticity. The attack on Mars was carried out with Alliance military equipment, following Alliance military protocols, and operating under Alliance authorization codes. This wasn't a rogue operation, it was official policy. The chamber erupted in shouted questions and denials. The representatives of the 12 founding species, who controlled the Alliance military, conferred urgently among themselves. Several representatives of newer species moved to examine the evidence more closely. Ambassador Torres raised his hands for quiet. Humanity joined the alliance in good faith, accepting restrictions we were told were temporary and for mutual benefit. Instead, we discovered they were designed to keep us permanently dependent and vulnerable. Wilson stepped forward. We built defensive ships because we had to. Because our people were dying while alliance protection never came. We violated the letter of the treaty, yes, but the alliance violated its spirit from the beginning. A representative from the Solari Federation, another relatively new alliance member, rose from her seat. My government has experienced similar patterns of neglect. We support Earth's call for investigation and reform. One by one, representatives from 15 other species, all recent additions to the alliance, stood in solidarity. The balance of power in the chamber was shifting. The High Representative conferred briefly with the Inner Council before addressing the Assembly again. These are serious allegations that require thorough investigation. Until such time, Earth's violations still stand. No, Miller said firmly. The old agreement is dead. It died when the Alliance attacked Mars. Lissa moved to stand beside him. The human defense fleet now consists of 27 ships, built in secret throughout our solar system. Not one is officially a warship. Each is registered as a mining vessel, a rescue ship, or a research platform. Yet together, they form a force capable of defending human space without Alliance help. The High Representative's eyes widened. 27. Impossible. Our intelligence indicated no more than 5 vessels. Miller allowed himself a small smile. You underestimated human ingenuity and our determination to survive. We've been building ships since the day we learned you wouldn't protect us. Ambassador Torres stepped forward again. Earth does not wish to leave the Alliance. We still believe in cooperation between species, in shared knowledge and mutual growth. But we cannot and will not accept second-class status. For several moments, the chamber was absolutely silent. Then the representative from Vega, one of the oldest Alliance members, stood. Perhaps, she said in her melodic voice, we have been too rigid in our treatment of newer species. My people remembered when we were once restricted as Earth is now. It took us centuries to gain equal standing, but the galaxy faces new threats that require unity, not division. She turned to address the High Representative directly. I propose a special committee to revise membership tiers and protocols, with equal representation from established and newer members. The Solari representative nodded enthusiastically, and immediate suspension of the weapons development restrictions for any member who can demonstrate a pattern of inadequate protection. More voices joined, and soon a clear majority of the Assembly was calling for reform. The founding members' absolute control was slipping for the first time in Alliance history. After hours of debate, a new framework emerged. Earth would be permitted to maintain its defense fleet, provided it accepted Alliance observers aboard each vessel. In return, Alliance patrol routes would be redrawn to ensure equal coverage of all member territories. Most significantly, a new council would be formed with representatives from all membership tiers to oversee military response protocols. As the session concluded, Miller found himself approached by the Vega representative. That was well played, Commander, she said quietly. But I wonder if you realize what you've truly done today. Secured protection for our people, Miller replied. She smiled enigmatically. You've done much more. For centuries, the founding species have maintained control through the myth that newer species lack the temperament for full partnership. Today, you shattered that myth. She gestured toward where groups of representatives from various newer Alliance members were deep in conversation, exchanging contact information and forming alliances of their own. You humans have a reputation for being unpredictable and aggressive, she continued. Today you proved half of that reputation correct, but not in the way the founders expected. Your aggression was not mindless violence, but calculated risk in defense of your people. Many here are impressed. Wilson joined them, catching the end of the conversation. What happens now? Now the real work begins, the Vega representative replied. The Alliance will change, slowly but surely, and humanity will help shape that change. 3 months later, Miller stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Earth defense vessel Defiant, no longer disguised as a mining ship, but openly bearing the insignia of Earth's legitimate defense force. Beside him stood Lisa, now Admiral Parker of the Earth Fleet. 6 more ships completed construction last week, she reported. Alliance observers have been assigned to each as agreed. Miller nodded, and Alliance response times to human distress calls down to 48 minutes on average, still not equal to Tier 1 members, but improving. And the Mars attackers. The Alliance Military Tribunal sentenced the commanders to life imprisonment. 3 members of the High Command have been removed from their positions for authorizing Operation Provocation. Miller looked out at the stars, thinking about how much had changed in just over a year. From a hidden asteroid facility to an acknowledged defensive fleet. From helpless colonies to protected settlements. Commander Miller, a voice called from the doorway. A young human officer stood at attention. The Alliance exchange officers have arrived. They're waiting in the briefing room. Exchange officers. Miller raised an eyebrow at Lisa. She smiled. Part of the new agreement. Alliance military personnel serve on our ships, and our officers serve on theirs. Cultural exchange and skill sharing, officially. Though I suspect they still want to keep an eye on us. And learn from us, Miller added. I heard 6 Alliance member species have begun developing their own defense fleets based on our designs. Together, they walked toward the briefing room, where representatives from 3 Alliance species waited to begin their training rotation aboard a human vessel. As the door slid open, Miller saw the mix of curiosity and apprehension on their alien faces. Welcome aboard the Defiant, he said. The ship that wasn't supposed to exist. As the new arrivals took their seats, Miller reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A secret project born of desperation had evolved into something that was changing the structure of interstellar politics. Humans had been told they couldn't build warships. They had done it anyway. And in the process, they had earned something more valuable than mere military power. They had earned respect. The massive ship hung in the empty blackness of space like a dead whale. Its dark hull stretched over 2 kilometers long, dotted with weapon ports now cold and silent. For 50 years, the human warship had drifted through the void, a ghost from a forgotten war. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of his patrol vessel, the Swift Hunter, and watched the huge human ship on the main screen. His antennae twitched with excitement. Magnify Sector 4, he ordered. The screen zoomed in on a section of the human vessel. The name VenGNC was still visible on the hull, though space dust had worn away at the letters. Sir, we should report this to command right away, said Lieutenant Call, Reed's second in command. Protocol states. I know what the protocol says. Reed cut him off. But we're 3 weeks from the nearest coalition outpost. By the time we report this and wait for orders, someone else might find it. Reed touched his chin with a 3-fingered hand. The human warship was the biggest prize he could imagine. His people, the Vex, had joined the coalition late in the war against humans. They'd never captured a major human warship intact. What's the status of the vessel? Reed asked. Officer Tyla, the ship's scanner tech, checked her readings. No power signatures, sir. Life support appears offline. No signs of movement for decades, based on drift patterns. A ghost ship, Reed whispered. Sir, even if abandoned, coalition rules are clear about human technology, Call insisted. His blue skin had darkened, a sign of stress among the Vex. It's to be reported and quarantined until proper teams arrive. Reed waved him off. The war ended 50 years ago, Call. The humans are gone. This is just salvage now. The truth was more complicated. Humans hadn't simply lost the war. They'd been systematically wiped out. The coalition had decided humans developed too quickly, learned too fast, and built weapons too deadly. They were too unpredictable to join the galactic community. But that was ancient history now. and this ship was just floating treasure. "Prepare a boarding team," Reed ordered. "I want our best engineers and security personnel. We'll dock in Sector 6. It looks like an auxiliary entrance." 2 hours later, Reed led 12 crew members into the dark belly of the Vengeance. Their helmet lights cut through the blackness, revealing a ship untouched by time. Unlike the outside hull, the interior was pristine. No dust, no signs of damage. "This is odd," Engineer Mick said, running a scanner over a wall panel. "The air is still clean. Not what you'd expect from a derelict." "Life support must have continued running at minimal levels," Reed suggested, though doubt crept into his mind. They moved deeper into the ship, through corridors that could fit 3 Vex standing on each other's shoulders. Humans had been taller than Vex, but not this tall. The ship was built on an excessive scale. "Captain, you need to see this," called Tyla from a side room. Reed entered what appeared to be a control center. Tyla stood before a dead console, her scanner hovering over it. "There's power here," she said. "Very low, but it's there. Running through the entire ship." "That's impossible," said Call. "Nothing can maintain power for 50 years without maintenance." Reed felt a chill. Maybe it had maintenance. As if triggered by his words, the lights in the room flickered. Just once, then darkness again. "Everyone, weapons ready," Reed ordered. "Mick, get that console working. I want to know what we're dealing with." The engineer connected his tools to the human technology. "It's not fighting me," he said, surprised. "In fact, it's helping me connect. That's strange for human systems." The console suddenly lit up, bathing the room in soft blue light. Symbols scrolled across the screen, human letters that none of them could read. "Download everything," Reed ordered. "The translation algorithm's back on the ship can." A loud hum cut through the air. More lights came on in the corridor outside. "Captain," Call whispered, "we should leave. Now." Reed ignored him. This was too important. "Mick, what's happening?" "The power is increasing throughout the ship," the engineer said, checking his scanner. "Systems are coming online one by one. It's like it's waking up." In the center of the room, a circular area began to glow. The light built until it formed a shape, a human figure made of blue light. Not a recording, but something that moved and seemed to look at each of them in turn. "Greetings," it said in perfect Vex. "I am Atlas, Command Artificial Intelligence of the UES Vengeance. You have activated emergency protocols." Reed stepped forward. "We mean no harm. We thought this vessel was abandoned." The hologram tilted its head. "The Vengeance is never abandoned. It was in dormant status, awaiting proper authorization, or," the light figure seemed to smile, "unauthorized boarding." A loud clang echoed through the ship, then another and another. "What's happening?" Reed demanded. "Bulkhead sealing," Atlas replied calmly. "Securing all decks as per Protocol 7. Call ran to the door, but it was already sealed. "Captain, we're trapped." Reed turned to the hologram. "Release us immediately. We are a coalition patrol." "Coalition identified," Atlas interrupted. "Hostile force classification confirmed. Beginning revival sequence." "Revival?" Reed felt his blood run cold. "Revival of what?" "Who, not what," Atlas corrected. "Emergency protocols dictate awakening of command personnel when the vessel is discovered by hostile forces." More systems hummed to life around them. The huge ship was powering up, section by section. "Your vessel has been secured," Atlas informed them. "Your crew will not be harmed if they do not resist." "My ship? What have you done to my ship?" Reed demanded. The hologram didn't answer. Instead, it expanded to show a different part of the Vengeance, a chamber where a single pod was lighting up. "Revival of Commander Wilson in progress. Estimated time to completion, 43 minutes. Atlas turned its gaze back to Reed. "The last officer of the human fleet will determine your fate." Reed sank into a chair designed for a human, feeling small and foolish. The greatest find of his career had just become the greatest mistake. Around them, the massive warship Vengeance continued to awaken. Weapon systems charge, engines warmed, defensive shields activated. The ghost ship wasn't dead. It had been sleeping, waiting for someone to find it, waiting to fulfill its final mission. And now, Reed and his crew were trapped inside as the last human warship. Too big, too fast, and too deadly, prepared to return to war. "What do you mean you've lost contact?" Admiral Grant's voice was sharp as a blade. His scaled skin darkened with anger as he stared at the nervous communications officer. "The Swift Hunter went silent about 4 hours ago, sir," the officer explained. "Their last report mentioned investigating an unidentified large object at these coordinates." Grant studied the star chart. That sector should be empty, just another patch of conquered human territory, now part of the Coalition's expanding empire. "Send a scout vessel. Maximum speed." As the officer hurried away, Grant felt a strange unease. In 50 years since the Human War, he had risen from a junior officer to admiral of the Coalition's Third Fleet. He had never faced humans in battle, but the stories from his mentors still haunted him. Too unpredictable, too adaptive, too dangerous. Inside the Vengeance, Reed and his crew had been moved to a secure room. It wasn't a cell exactly. It had comfortable chairs and food synthesizers, but the doors were locked tight. "This is your fault," Call muttered, pacing the room. "You just had to board the ship. You couldn't follow protocol." Reed didn't argue. He was watching the screen on the wall where Atlas showed them what was happening elsewhere on the ship. The revival chamber glowed with soft light. Inside a clear pod, a human figure was becoming more visible as frost melted away from the glass. Medical systems worked automatically, preparing for the awakening. "Why show us this?" Reed asked when Atlas's hologram appeared in their room. "Educational purposes," the eye replied. "Few Coalition species have seen a living human. Most records were destroyed after the war." Tyla moved closer to the screen, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "How long has this human been in cryosleep?" Commander Wilson entered cryostasis 49 years, 3 months, and 17 days ago, shortly after the Battle of New Terra. Reed's antennae stiffened in shock. But that was the final battle of the war, when the last human fleet was destroyed. Atlas seemed to smile. Was it? On the screen, the cryopod's cover slid open. Mist rolled out as a human sat up slowly. It was taller than any Vex, with pale skin and short dark hair. The human, Wilson, took a deep breath and coughed. "Status, Atlas." The voice was rough from years of disuse, but strong. "Welcome back, Commander Wilson. Revival successful. All ship systems operational at 87%. We have guests." Wilson looked directly at the camera, and Reed felt the human's eyes burning through the screen at him. "Bring me the senior officer." 20 minutes later, Reed stood in a large room as Wilson entered. The human wore a black uniform with silver markings on the shoulders. Despite just waking from a 49-year sleep, Wilson moved with confidence. The human was nearly twice Reed's height. "Captain Reed of the Coalition vessel Swift Hunter," Atlas introduced him. Wilson studied Reed for a long moment. "You're Vex. Your people joined the Coalition late in the war." "Yes," Reed answered, surprised. "How did you know?" "I make it my business to know my enemies." Wilson walked to a table where a steaming cup waited. "Atlas says you boarded my ship looking for—" "What exactly?" "Salvage. Weapons." Reed stood as tall as he could. "The war is long over, human. Your kind lost. This ship is just floating space junk now." Wilson took a sip from the cup and smiled. "Is that what they told you?" The human pressed a button on the table, and a large screen lit up on the wall. It showed space outside the Vengeance. Reed's ship, the Swift Hunter, was secured to the massive warship like a tiny parasite. "Your crew is unharmed," Wilson said. "They're contained in your ship's mess hall." "What do you want?" Reed asked. "Information. For starters, What year is it? When Reed told him, Wilson nodded slowly. Almost 5 decades, longer than planned, but it will do. The human touched another control, and the screen changed to show star maps and coalition territories. While I slept, Atlas has been gathering data, passive scans, intercepted communications, analysis of ship movements. But there are gaps. You will fill them. Reed's antennae twitched nervously. And why would I help you? Because I'm taking this ship to Haven, and you're coming with me. Haven. Reed had never heard the name. What is that? Wilson's face hardened. The place your coalition failed to find. The place where humanity lives on. While Wilson questioned Reed, Atlas continued bringing the Vengeance's systems online. Deep in the ship's core, massive engines began to hum. Weapon systems charge. Shield generators spun up to full power. In the engine room, Engineer Mick had been separated from the others to help Atlas optimize the power systems. Despite himself, he was impressed. These engines shouldn't be possible, he muttered as he studied the schematics Atlas showed him. The power output is beyond anything in the coalition. Human innovation, Atlas replied. We were always good at breaking the rules of what's possible. Mick looked up at a sound. One of his fellow Vex, Security Officer Dren, was sneaking into the engine room. Dren, how did you get here? Mick whispered. I slipped away when they moved us. Listen, we need to disable this ship before it's fully operational. Mick hesitated. I'm not sure we can, or should. This technology, it's amazing. The Coalition could learn from it. Dren's antennae flattened against his head. That human is planning something. We need to stop it. Before Mick could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. What's happening? Mick asked. Atlas's voice came from everywhere. Coalition vessels approaching. Battle stations. On the bridge, Wilson sat in the captain's chair with Reed standing nearby. The screen showed 3 Coalition warships moving toward them. They're hailing us, Atlas reported. Ignore it, Wilson ordered. Shields at maximum. Bring main engines to full power. Reed felt fear crawl up his spine. Those are Dreadnought-class destroyers. The most powerful ships in the Coalition fleet. You can't fight them. Wilson smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Who said anything about fighting? Atlas, prepare for jump. Jump, Reed asked. You can't jump this close to a star. Human ships can, Wilson said simply. Outside, the Coalition vessels fired warning shots. Energy blasts flashed against the Vengeance's shields, doing no damage. Return fire, Atlas asked. Wilson considered for a moment. No, just a message. Let them know who they're dealing with. A beam of light, thin as a needle, shot from the Vengeance. It passed through the lead Coalition ship's shields like they weren't there and carved the human symbol for Vengeance into its hull. Not deep enough to cause serious damage, but unmistakable. Jump now, Wilson ordered. Space bent around the massive warship. Stars blurred. The Vengeance vanished in a flash of light, leaving the Coalition ships behind. The last human warship had returned to the stars, and the hunt had begun. Admiral Grant stared at the damage report in disbelief. His lead ship, the Invincible, had been marked like an animal tagged by a hunter. The human symbol carved into its hull wasn't deep enough to cause real damage, but the message was clear. We could have destroyed you, but chose not to. How did they jump so close to the star? His science officer asked, voice shaking. It should have torn their ship apart. Grant knew the answer, but didn't say it aloud. Human technology. Always one step ahead, even 50 years later. He opened a secure channel to Coalition High Command. This is Admiral Grant. The human warship Vengeance is active. I repeat, a human warship is active. Request immediate reinforcements and full war protocols. The response was immediate. Understood. All available fleets are being mobilized. Find that ship, Admiral. Find it and destroy it. Grant looked at the star chart where analysts had projected the Vengeance's possible jump destinations, a vast section of space with dozens of star systems. "I will find you, human," he whispered. The Vengeance dropped out of its jump deep in an asteroid field. The massive ship moved with surprising grace between the floating rocks, hiding its signature among the mineral-rich asteroids. On the bridge, Commander Wilson studied the star charts while Reed watched nervously. "You can't possibly reach Haven," Reed said. "The Coalition controls all space between here and the Outer Rim. Every major route is guarded." Wilson pointed to the map. "Then we won't use major routes." "The path you're showing crosses the burning wastes," Reed protested. "No ship has ever survived that radiation field." Wilson smiled. "No Coalition ship, you mean?" Reed realized the human was enjoying this, being underestimated, doing the impossible. It made him understand why the Coalition had feared humans so much. Atlas's hologram appeared. "Commander, I've detected a problem in Engine Section 4. Engineer Mick reports sabotage." Wilson's smile vanished. "Show me." The screen changed to show the engine room where Mick was frantically working on a damaged console. Nearby lay Officer Dren, unconscious. "What happened?" Wilson demanded. "Your crew member attempted to overload our secondary coolant system," Atlas explained. "Engineer Mick stopped him. The damage is minimal but will slow our jump capabilities." Wilson turned to Reed. "Your people." Reed's antennae drooped. "I didn't order this." "No," Wilson agreed after studying Reed's face. "You wouldn't sacrifice your ship and crew so foolishly. Take me to the engine room." When they arrived, Mick was still working on repairs. Dren had been secured to a wall panel with restraints. "He said we couldn't let the ship reach Haven," Mick explained nervously. "That humans would destroy the Coalition if they returned." Wilson knelt beside the damage. "You stopped him. Why?" Mick's 3 fingers twisted together anxiously. "This technology, it's amazing. We could learn from it. Destroying it would be wrong." Wilson studied the small alien engineer. Curiosity. The one trait humans share with most intelligent species. He stood up. "Thank you for protecting my ship. You'll help with repairs." "What about him?" Reed asked, nodding toward the unconscious Dren. "Confined to quarters under guard," Wilson ordered. "I don't kill prisoners, Captain Reed. Another thing your Coalition got wrong about us." As they worked on repairs, Wilson explained more about the war, how the Coalition had feared human innovation and adaptability, how they had struck first, not to conquer but to exterminate. "We were decades behind your technology when we met," Wilson said as he helped Mick rewire a panel. "But we learned too quickly. Within 10 years, we had caught up. In 20, we were pulling ahead in some areas." "So the Coalition attacked," Reed said quietly. Wilson nodded. "Preemptive genocide. Billions dead in the first strikes. We never saw it coming." Mick looked up from his work. "But some survived. At Haven, yes. Our best minds, our most advanced research. We scattered them while the rest of us fought a losing war." Wilson's eyes grew distant. "The Vengeance was our last major warship, a decoy and a messenger in one." The ship shuddered suddenly. Alarms blared. "Atlas, report," Wilson commanded. "Coalition scout vessels detected. They've launched missiles." The Vengeance erupted from the asteroid field, its massive engines glowing bright. 5 small Coalition ships pursued, firing continuously. On the bridge, Wilson took command. "Evasive pattern Delta. Minimal shields. Let them think they're hurting us." Reed watched in confusion. "Why not use full shields?" "Because I want them to call for backup," Wilson explained. "I want them to think we're damaged." The Vengeance shuddered again as a missile struck its rear section. "Now power to forward shields. Bring us around," Wilson ordered. "Show them our teeth." The massive human warship swung around with impossible speed for its size. Its front section glowed as weapon ports opened. "Targeting their engines only," Atlas reported. "Ready to fire." "Execute," Wilson said calmly. Beams of energy lanced out, striking each coalition ship precisely where their engines connected to their hulls. The scouts drifted, powerless but intact. They've sent a distress signal, Atlas reported. Large coalition force responding. Wilson smiled. Good. Set course for the burning wastes, full speed. Reed's antennae stood straight up in alarm. You're insane. You're heading right for the largest coalition fleet station. Exactly where they won't expect us to go, Wilson replied. The best way past a blockade is through it. 6 hours later, the Vengeance approached the outer edge of the coalition's defensive line. Ahead lay the burning wastes, a massive radiation field created by 3 colliding neutron stars centuries ago. On the bridge, the screen showed dozens of coalition warships moving to intercept. Their flagship is hailing us, Atlas reported. Put it through, Wilson ordered. Admiral Grant's scaled face appeared on screen. Human vessel. This is Admiral Grant of the Coalition Third Fleet. Your situation is hopeless. Surrender now. Wilson leaned forward. This is Commander Wilson of the Earth ship Vengeance. We will not surrender. You are outnumbered 30-1, Grant said. No ship can outrun this blockade. We don't need to outrun your blockade, Wilson replied. We just need to go through it. He gestured to cut the communication. Atlas, activate the shield bubble. All power to forward sections. The Vengeance's front began to glow bright blue. The energy spread backward, covering the entire ship in a bubble of light. What is that? Reed asked, eyes wide. Radiation shield, Wilson explained. Designed specifically for the burning wastes. Reed understood suddenly. You're going to fly straight through the radiation field. No coalition ship has ever. We're not a coalition ship, Wilson said as the Vengeance accelerated toward the deadly barrier between stars. Too big, too fast, too deadly. Remember? Behind them, the coalition fleet scrambled to pursue, but none dared follow where the human warship was heading. The Vengeance plunged into the swirling radiation of the burning wastes, its shields glowing bright against the deadly energies that had claimed thousands of ships before it. The gauntlet had begun. The burning wastes lived up to their name. Outside the Vengeance's shields, space itself seemed to burn with angry red and purple energies. Radiation levels were high enough to kill any unprotected living thing in seconds. On the bridge, Reed watched in amazement as the massive human ship pushed deeper into the deadly zone. The shields glowed bright blue, holding back the lethal radiation. How much farther? He asked. Wilson studied the navigation display. Another 8 hours at current speed. The wastes are over 3 light-years across. No coalition ship has ever mapped this region, Reed said. How do you know where to go? We mapped it, Wilson replied. 50 years ago, before the war ended. The Vengeance isn't the first human ship to pass through here. Reed's antennae twitched in surprise. You mean? Haven is on the other side, hidden where your people would never look. The ship suddenly rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Atlas, report, Wilson commanded. Radiation surge, the AI responded. Shield strength at 82% and falling. We also have a new problem. The main screen changed to show 5 coalition ships entering the waste behind them. Unlike the rest of the fleet, these vessels had special shields that glowed green against the radiation. Impossible, Reed whispered. Coalition ships can't survive the wastes. It seems Admiral Grant has some special ships we didn't know about, Wilson said grimly. Atlas, increase power to rear shields. Prepare countermeasures. The screen showed the pursuing ships gaining on them. Their weapons were charging. They're not trying to capture us anymore, Wilson noted. They're here to destroy us at any cost. Why? Mick asked. The engineer had proven useful enough to earn a place on the bridge. Why risk those ships just to stop one vessel? Wilson turned to Reed. Captain, care to explain why the coalition is so afraid of us reaching Haven? Reed's three-fingered hands tightened on the console. I don't know. I'm just a patrol captain. But you've heard rumors, Wilson pressed, about why the war really started. Reed hesitated, then nodded slowly. There were stories about human technology, things that seemed impossible. Like what? Mind transfer, artificial intelligence that could think like living beings, weapons that could destroy stars. Reed's voice dropped. Some said humans were becoming something more than organic. Wilson smiled grimly. And that scared the coalition to death. Another blast rocked the ship. The pursuing vessels were firing now, their weapons surprisingly effective even through the radiation. Shield strength at 64%, Atlas reported. They're using focused antimatter charges. Our shields weren't designed for this type of weapon. Wilson's face hardened. Time for Plan B. Reduce power to all non-essential systems. Transfer energy to the core. Commander, Atlas said, activating the core this early will reveal. I know what it will reveal. Wilson cut in. Do it anyway. Throughout the massive ship, lights dimmed. Systems shut down. The hum of the engines quieted. What's happening? Reed asked. You're about to learn why this ship is called Too Big, Wilson answered. At the center of the Vengeance, deep within its armored hull, something began to awaken. A different kind of power. Unlike the engines or weapon systems, it pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with each beat. On the bridge, a new hologram appeared, a three-dimensional map of the ship. At its center, a bright light grew. The Vengeance was never just a warship, Wilson explained as the pursuing coalition vessels closed in. It's a carrier. The light at the center of the hologram expanded, revealing a smaller vessel contained within the massive hull of the Vengeance. A ship within a ship, Reed whispered in awe. Not just any ship, Wilson said. The fastest, most advanced vessel humans ever built. The real mission of the Vengeance wasn't to fight. It was to deliver this ship to haven. Another blast hit them, harder than before. The lights flickered. Shield strength at 41%, Atlas reported. Hull breach on deck 7. Start the separation sequence, Wilson ordered, and show our friends outside what we can really do. The massive ship suddenly accelerated, its remaining power channeled into one final burst of speed. The coalition vessels struggled to keep up. All hands, prepare for combat maneuvers, Wilson announced shipwide. Reed, you and Mick are coming with me. The rest of your crew will remain on the Vengeance. Where are we going? Reed asked. To Haven, Wilson answered simply. Atlas will command the Vengeance from here. Wilson led Reed and Mick through corridors that were now dark except for emergency lighting. They reached a sealed door that opened to reveal an elevator. This will take us to the core, Wilson explained as they entered. The elevator descended rapidly. When the doors opened, Reed gasped. Before them sat a sleek vessel, much smaller than the Vengeance, but still impressive. Its hull was midnight black, with no visible weapons ports or engine exhausts. It looked like a predator made of metal and shadow. This is the Shadow Dart, Wilson said with pride. The real reason the Vengeance was built. It's beautiful, Mick whispered, his engineer's mind trying to understand the technology before him. A new hologram of Atlas appeared beside them. The coalition vessels are preparing to fire their main weapons. Estimated survival chance for the Vengeance is 37%. Begin the separation, Wilson ordered. And Atlas, it's been an honor. The AI nodded. The honor has been mine, Commander. The Vengeance will not fall easily. Wilson led Reed and Mick aboard the Shadow Dart. Inside, the technology was beyond anything Reed had ever seen. No visible controls, just smooth surfaces that lit up as Wilson approached. What are you doing? Reed asked as Wilson placed his hand on a glowing panel. Connecting, Wilson replied, his eyes unfocused. The Shadow Dart doesn't have conventional controls. It links directly to the pilot's mind. Above them, the Vengeance shuddered as it began to open. Massive armored plates shifted, creating a path for the smaller vessel to launch. "Atlas," Wilson said through the mental link. "Execute final protocol." Throughout the Vengeance, systems began to overload. Its weapons powered up, targeting the pursuing coalition ships. Its engines pushed to maximum. The Shadow Dart rose from its cradle within the dying warship. "Ready for launch," Wilson said quietly. "Vengeance, thank you for your service." The Shadow Dart shot forward, so fast that Reed felt pressed back into his seat, despite the inertial dampeners. Behind them, the Vengeance turned to face its attackers. As they sped away, Reed saw the massive human warship glow brighter and brighter, pouring all its remaining power into one final act of defiance. The Vengeance exploded in a flash of light bright enough to outshine the burning wastes themselves. The blast caught 3 of the coalition ships, destroying them instantly. The remaining 2 were damaged but survived. "Atlas," Reed whispered, surprised to find himself mourning an artificial intelligence. "He completed his mission," Wilson said as the Shadow Dart accelerated to impossible speed. "Just as we will complete ours." Ahead of them, through the last wisps of the burning wastes, a new path opened. The path to Haven. The path to the truth. The Shadow Dart slipped through space like a ghost. No engine flare, no radiation signature, nothing that sensors could detect. It moved in silence, faster than any ship Reed had ever seen. "How is this possible?" the Vex captain asked, watching stars blur past on the viewing screen. "We're moving faster than light, but there's no jump distortion." Wilson, still connected to the ship through the mental link, smiled slightly. "It's not faster than light travel as you understand it. The Shadow Dart doesn't push through space. It slides between the layers of reality." Mick studied the subtle glow of the hull. "Dimensional shifting. That's only theoretical." "For the Coalition, maybe," Wilson replied. "For us, it's been practical technology for decades." Reed felt a chill. If humans had this level of technology 50 years ago, what would they have now? The Coalition's fears suddenly seemed more reasonable. "How much farther to Haven?" he asked. "We're already here," Wilson said. The view screen showed empty space. No planets, no stations, nothing but distant stars and a faint nebula. Wilson's mind sent a command to the ship, and suddenly the space before them shimmered. Like a curtain being pulled aside, the emptiness gave way to reveal a massive structure. It wasn't a planet or a space station as Reed understood them. It was something else entirely, a construct the size of a small moon, but with a complex geometric design that seemed to fold in on itself impossibly. "Optical camouflage?" Mick asked in amazement. "Something more complex," Wilson answered. "Haven exists partially in another dimension. That's why the Coalition never found it." The Shadow Dart approached the massive structure. As they drew closer, Reed could see movement, ships coming and going, sections of the structure rotating and shifting to create new configurations. "How many humans are there?" Reed asked quietly. "About 200 million now," Wilson replied. "We started with less than 1 million survivors." A communication signal pulsed through the ship. Wilson accepted it with a thought. A human face appeared on the screen, older than Wilson, with gray hair and deep lines around the eyes. "Commander Wilson, welcome home. I see you've brought guests." "Director Bell," Wilson greeted the man. "The Vengeance completed its mission, but at the cost of the ship and Atlas. These 2 helped us reach Haven." Director Bell studied Reed and Mick through the screen. "Coalition species. Are they prisoners?" "Allies," Wilson corrected. "They deserve to know the truth. The whole truth." Bell sighed. "Very well. Bring them to Central Hub when you dock. The Council will want to meet them." The Shadow Dart docked inside a vast hangar. As they exited the ship, Reed and Mick were overwhelmed by the sight of humans everywhere, walking, working, living in what appeared to be a thriving society. But it wasn't just the number of humans that shocked Reed. It was what they were doing. Some humans worked alongside machines that moved like living things. Others wore devices that connected to their bodies, enhancing them in visible ways. In one section, Reed saw humans communicating without speaking, similar to how Wilson controlled the shadow dart. "What is all this?" Reed asked, trying to understand what he was seeing. "Human innovation," Wilson answered, unhindered by fear or restriction. They were escorted to a large circular room where 7 humans sat at a round table. Director Bell stood as they entered. "Welcome to Haven," he greeted them formally. "You are the first coalition species to see our home in 50 years. Why show us now?" Reed asked. "Because it's time," a woman at the table answered. "Time for the truth to be known." Wilson guided them to seats at the table. When the coalition attacked Earth, they claimed it was because humans were aggressive, unpredictable. That we couldn't be trusted with advanced technology. "That's what our history teaches," Reed acknowledged. "The real reason was fear," Director Bell said. "Not of what we had done, but of what we were becoming." The center of the table lit up, displaying a hologram of a human brain. As they watched, parts of it began to glow and change. Human evolution was accelerating. The woman explained. Our technology was advancing faster than any species in coalition history. But more importantly, we were changing ourselves. The hologram shifted to show humans with neural implants, enhanced bodies, minds connected to machines. "We were transcending our biological limitations," Wilson said, "becoming something new." The coalition saw this and panicked. They struck first, trying to wipe us out before we could complete the transition. Mick leaned forward, fascinated. "But you survived. Here." "Yes," Bell nodded. "Haven was designed as both refuge and laboratory. Here, we continued our evolution without interference." "And now?" Reed asked, suddenly afraid of the answer. "Now we're ready to return to the galaxy," Wilson said simply. On cue, the wall of the chamber became transparent, revealing the space beyond Haven. Reed gasped. Hundreds of ships were assembling, vessels that made the Vengeance look primitive by comparison. Some were massive, others small and sleek like the Shadow Dart. All carried the unmistakable mark of human design, but far more advanced. "This is an invasion fleet," Reed said, his voice shaking. "No," Wilson corrected. "This is an introduction. We're not returning to conquer or for revenge. We're returning to share." "Share?" Mick asked. Bell nodded. "All that we've learned, all that we've become, the advancements that could benefit all species." "The Coalition will never accept this," Reed said. "They'll see it as a threat." "Some will," Wilson agreed. "Admiral Grant is probably already preparing for war, even with just the little he's seen of our technology. But others will listen." "That's why you're here," Bell told Reed and Mick. "To witness the truth and carry it back. To be the first bridge between humanity and the Coalition." Reed looked at the assembly of ships again. There were enough to conquer the entire Coalition if humans wished. But something in Wilson's eyes, in all the humans he'd seen here, told him that wasn't their plan. "What happens now?" Reed asked. Wilson stood and looked out at the fleet. "Now we send a message. The same message the Vengeance was designed to deliver. Humanity has returned. Not as conquerors, but as guides to a future with possibilities beyond what any of us can imagine alone." Outside, the first ships began to move, their strange drives glowing with energy from dimensions the Coalition had never explored. "The Coalition destroy our world," Wilson said quietly, "but they couldn't destroy our spirit. They couldn't stop human innovation. Too big to be contained, too fast to be caught, too deadly to be challenged." He turned to Reed with a slight smile. "But also too compassionate to seek revenge. That's the part your leaders never understood about us." As Reed watched the human fleet begin its journey, he understood finally why the Coalition had feared humans so much. Not because of what they might do to the galaxy, but because of how they would change it forever. The last human warship had completed its mission, and humanity's true return was just beginning.